Hello and welcome to Film du Siècle, the film and media channel focused on all things 90s and 2000s. This week, Seb and Olly will be discussing Courting Condi.
Hello and welcome to Film du Siècle, the film discussion channel where we talk about all things 1990s to 2000s. And this week we've got a bit of a departure from the norm. We've got a very curious movie that we only, to be honest, found out about a few weeks ago. It's Devin Rattray's Courting Condi, which is apparently about the real-life actor Devin Rattray, famous for playing Buzz from Home Alone and nobody else, trying to win the affections of, I don't know what her role was it US Secretary of State? Condoleezza Rice, who was a prominent US politician in the mid-2000s who served in the Bush administration. I assume there's a lot more to it than just that. I imagine it would be some sort of satire movie in the same style as Borat, or any of Sacha Baron Cohen's work. That's what I'm picturing in my head. I could be completely wrong about that. It could be earnest. Her being a high-ranking politician could just be incidental, but I highly doubt it. Ollie, do you know anything about this movie?
I know nothing about this movie other than that it exists, and it's Devin Rattray's biggest credit, I think.
I think so as well. Well, Home Alone, but he plays himself in it. And apparently he does a lot of singing in this, and I'm really curious to see what his singing voice is like.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to find out.
I have no idea what to make of this movie. I guess we'll have to wait and see for it to...
The premise instantly piqued my curiosity, as I think it did you as well, because we were talking about this on a previous video, and it was like, holy shit, that sounds amazing, let's do it.
Yeah, it's because it's such an obscure actor, it's such an odd premise, and it's such an obscure person for the movie to be the subject of. Well, I say obscure, I'm sure that Condoleezza Rice is a lot more well-known in America, but as someone who doesn't live in America and never has, I know absolutely nothing about her, or her politics. I know absolutely nothing about Devin Rattray outside of he was in Home Alone twice. And so this is a complete blank slate for me, which is a unique opportunity because usually we see movies we've already seen, or at least know something a bit about.
Yeah. We usually do films that we know we like because we have got to sit through with them and talk about them for at least an hour, and it's just more pleasant to do that if we like the movie.
Exactly. I mean, this could be absolutely terrible, and if so, you'll hear about that a few minutes from now, but I'm very curious about this. This could either be hilarious or 7 levels of cringe. I don't know. We'll see. Or both. Okay, so shall we put this on and see what people think when we come back?
Why not? It's not like we've got any memories of the movie to talk about this time, is it?
No, absolutely not. See you in a bit.
See you in a bit.
And we have returned, having watched Courting Condi. So, I'm going to ask the usual question. Ollie, did you like it?
I did, yeah. I'm not sure what that was, but I mean, it was sort of a mockumentary, and also a documentary, and also a musical, all at once.
Yeah, I mean, that's good value for money there. You're getting 3 things in one package.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was kind of a documentary, but with some comedy spliced in.
Yeah, it was both what I thought it was going to be and one of those things that you really have to see to believe.
I think I speak for both of us to say that this is a film du siècle movie.
Absolutely. This is the sort of film that we were put on the face of the planet to watch and talk about.
Yeah, because for some reason I can't imagine this being that widely discussed.
No, maybe it was more well known or talked about in America, because obviously it's about an American politician, so it probably would have flown by in the UK without many people noticing it. I don't know.
Yeah. What an idea, though.
Yeah, I mean, what a way to do a documentary. I mean, 1 minute it's sort of, what's the word, participatory, where you have the filmmaker and the main character both taking an active role in forming a narrative and a plot. And then the next, you have lots of interviews with various people, sort of doing it as a traditional documentary. And they sort of mix the two genres. And it works quite well because it never really feels out of step with the other halves of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's broken up with Devon Rattray's Love Discs,
Yes.
where which are like, and that's like a musical soundtrack.
Yeah, it does it all.
And, well, they give you sort of the history of Condoleezza Rice and different parts of it and how she was seen by different people. And his feelings toward her sort of change to reflect those throughout.
Yeah, and it's very obviously done in a way that we're meant to, believe a certain narrative at the end of it, which all documentaries do. This is nothing new. This is nothing radical. But I like the way it does it because it does sort of ease you in. But also, there's moments where it does ramp it up to 11, like obviously at the end in the last few minutes.
Yeah, because it starts off with the whole spoilers, by the way.
Yeah.
It starts off with
In
the
case
whole,
you don't know how Condoleezza Rice's life has gone, spoilers for
yeah,
Condoleezza Rice's life.
yeah. It starts off with where she was born, the things she liked when she grew up, and at the end, it's full on. Here are her war crimes.
Imagine having not read Condoleezza Rice by 2020. I mean, it's been out since the 60s.
Yeah. So, like, I thought it was going to start off as something as a puff piece.
No, I knew what they were doing. I knew they were going to ease us into it. I knew it would start off as a puff piece because, let's face it, she wouldn't have done anything particularly despicable as a 10-year-old, would she?
I suppose not.
You know, this isn't Home Alone, where you've got psychopathic 10-year-olds.
No, although Devon Rattray was.
Despite the presence of Devon Rattray.
Yeah, he was in Home Alone.
He was indeed. And I like how it doesn't even mention it once.
Yeah, even though he's playing himself, and he could mention that as a sort of a glory days story.
Yeah.
When he was a kid, he was in Home Alone. But no, they don't go near it.
He wants to stand on his own 2 feet. They could very easily do it so that whenever he introduces himself, people say, "Hi, I'm Devon Rattray, you might remember me from Home Alone." But they don't do that, and you kind of got to respect that he is trying to get out on his own steam.
Yeah, or maybe this is a fictionalized version of Devon Rattray who was never in Home Alone.
I think it is, because it's very participatory. A lot of it's very obviously scripted, which is fine because, well, Sacha Baron Cohen's legendary for making very good documentaries that do this. But I feel how it differs to Sacha Baron Cohen's style is a lot less of it is improvised or with people who are oblivious to what's going on.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when you're tackling the subject matter being a person who's very high up, still in power, you've got to be a bit more cautious than Borat running around naked, upsetting rednecks, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, this came out just after the end of the Bush administration, really. So, at the time, it was very topical.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you made this today, a lot of people would be like, who the fuck's Condoleezza Rice? They wouldn't care, would they?
I still knew the name Condoleezza Rice. I had to check with you which administration she was a part of.
Well, I remember playing a prank on my ex. We went for a curry, and I tried to get her to order the Condoleezza Rice, but she knew who it was, so it didn't work.
Oh.
But the thing is, I jokingly did it as well to the waiter, and he gave me a look like, yeah, that's not very funny, because he obviously knew who Condoleezza Rice was.
Yeah, but I gotta say, I love the premise. The
Yeah.
sound design is really good, especially when they go into the hospital where she was born.
Yeah.
That's got a sort of Ghost Hunters vibe to it.
Yeah, that felt really good, and I love that kind of thing from a documentary when you're sort of exploring the unexplored, because they could have just made this like a 2-hour-long hit piece, but they really go into the effort of trying to go back to her roots, speak to people she grew up with, and understand where she came from. They do make an effort with everything. Everything feels effortful. I don't know what the opposite of effortless is.
It's also not just about her. It's about Devon Rattray's
personality,
journey.
I suppose.
Devon Rattray's journey of discovery about her and his and the changes he goes through during his quest to woo her.
Which is obviously meant to be a sort of audience stand-in, because we're expected to feel the same way he does throughout the movie. Like, oh, well, this is impressive. She has done very well for herself. And then, like, oh, well, she's crossed the line now.
I don't know how Condoleezza Rice was received as a personality in America. Could this be a metaphor for how the American people felt about her throughout her tenure?
I think so. I mean, politics being very partisan and polarised, maybe a bit less so at the time than today. You'd expect her to have you'd expect her to have supporters and detractors roughly along party lines.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, people imagine this idealised time when people are a lot less politically divided, but I wouldn't say it was radically less politically divided, to be honest.
Yeah, it was just quieter, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know, I can think of people in Iraq who would differ. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. No, but you know what I mean, don't you? There's
It was less raucous.
Yeah.
And a bit more respectful.
Like, not that I'd recommend you did, but you could ignore it if you chose to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably not a good way to deal with, like, international problems. Definitely not.
Yeah, no, not at all.
But yeah, the movie is like a more careful Borat in a way. Which is probably how you do this.
Yeah. I would recommend this to anyone who I thought would be interested in anything about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know I keep comparing this to Borat. That's going to happen because that is the metric when it comes to participatory documentaries, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that Sacha Baron Cohen didn't invent the idea of a character doing a documentary, but that's the most famous one of this genre, isn't it?
Yeah. By a long way.
Yeah, and I definitely got Pound Shop Louis Theroux vibes from the filmmaker Sebastian as well.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know if he was trying to do a bit of an impression of him, but he definitely comes across that way. And I think he's quite a good personality because although he is sort of the person in charge because he's the filmmaker, he's also the person who keeps pushing Devon out of his comfort zone, which I thought was quite a good characterisation because you expect him to be a lot more serious about it, but he's the one who's taking his trousers off at the end of the day.
Yeah, he's trying to force Devon Rattray to strip naked for a shot.
I would like to explain the context behind that, but that's literally what happened.
Yeah, because one of the song lyrics in a video he's shooting is he feels naked, he said, I think it'd be better if you were naked, and that becomes an argument. And then a fight as he's physically is like, I'm not asking an actor to do anything I wouldn't do, so he takes his clothes off and then tries to physically remove Devon Rattray's clothes, like, against his will. It's very awkward.
I'm not going to do this, but all the time, but if this was a Sacha Baron Cohen movie, they would probably be doing this in the middle of a crowded hotel.
Yeah.
Which I think they did in the first Borat as well.
Well, they did something similar.
But they do it on a beach where no one's around, so... I mean, yeah. I'm not going to say that they're pussies for not doing that in public, but...
No, I think Sacha Baron Cohen is a bit mad.
I think he is as well. I mean, he's done some good things that I really admire, but yeah. I think it is very understandable that 99.9% of documentary filmmakers wouldn't take it as far as he has, and I think that's the reason why he's one of the most famous of them, because of how far he's taken it.
Yeah, he's a bit of a maverick there.
Yeah. And very much like Louis Theroux, who's very good at picking very interesting subject matters to do documentaries about, this is very interesting subject matter.
It is, yeah.
Because I don't know much about Condoleezza Rice, but there's not really anyone else like her in politics then or now, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was very interesting to find out more.
Yeah, it's educational, it's also funny,
yeah,
and it's a musical.
Exactly.
What more do you want?
Precisely, yeah, what more do you want? I mean, it would have been nice if there was an orangutan, but that's just our taste.
Yeah.
Could have had that.
I compared Devon Rattray and the way he had and his mannerisms in this to Chris Farley once, and it's like, if this wasn't Devon Rattray, I could imagine Chris Farley doing it.
I kind of prefer that they didn't utilise someone as the main character who's known for being a comedian, because then
Yeah.
you would know that a lot of this is meant for laughs. Whereas to the casual viewer, you probably wouldn't know how much of this is earnest and how much of it's for laughs, would you?
No, I suppose not.
Because you're sort of meant to treat it as if this is all what's happening. The very first scene you see is him talking to his mom about how he's always fancied Condoleezza Rice, and she goes along with it. So I don't know if that's his actual parents that appear throughout this movie. As in, obviously it's all scripted, but I don't know whether it's their parents and they were, or whether they were actors playing his parents.
Yeah.
It's not very clear. I don't mind not knowing, but it's not very clear.
Yeah, this is true. I don't think it's an important detail, though.
No, but I would be interested to know. Also, this movie does treat its subject matter and the times it's talking about with a surprising amount of tact, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Because the whole movie is Devin Rattray deliberately making a fool out of himself for the sake of comedy. In the most earnest way possible, of course.
While learning and therefore teaching about Condoleezza Rice.
Yeah. When there's a subject like the civil rights movement or the end of segregation, they do treat it with the gravitas and respect it deserves as a subject matter.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, maybe at the very end, but it doesn't really exaggerate to any extent. Like, it doesn't say all from the beginning, oh, we don't like Condoleezza Rice, you're not meant to like her. It sort of starts off very objectively talking about her upbringing, and then presents people who are both supporters and detractors, letting you form your own opinion. And then at the end, it gives you all the heavy stuff that, they probably would want to ease you into.
Yeah.
Still taking that approach, but being very clear how it makes you want to feel.
Yeah.
But I think it does it in the best possible way, because if something starts off making it very clear that it's got a hate boner for the subject matter, then you're going to sort of say, well, yeah, of course they're going to say that.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah, it makes its points very clearly, carefully, and in a way that will make you take it seriously.
Yeah.
It doesn't cry wolf by embellishing at any point.
No. And Devin Rattray's quest to woo her is still very much the focus.
Yeah.
For the vast majority of the runtime. So it's through that lens.
Exactly, and I think it's a good lens to do it through.
Yeah, I never would have thought of this premise, but it really does work for what they're trying to do.
Oh yeah, it does. Absolutely. And it was also literally a better love story than Twilight.
Oh, of course.
I'd like to see more documentaries like this. I feel like it was a really good documentary style.
Yeah. And who knew Devin Rattray was such a good musician?
Yeah, exactly. Also, I think it treats the audience with a lot of maturity. It knows that we probably came for the memes and the jokes and, how ridiculous the premise is, the morbid curiosity. But it doesn't really tell us how to feel. It sort of knows that if you talk about torture and these sorts of things, that most people watching it don't need to be told it's bad. They will come to that conclusion themselves.
Yeah.
I also liked the camera style when they were filming the sort of... I don't think you can call them skits because it's the plot. You can't really call them skits when it's the plot, can you?
No, I don't suppose you can.
But when they're filming the Devin Rattray scenes, I like the camera style. It feels very much like The Office.
Well, I've never seen an episode of The Office in my life.
But you're aware of the style of it, though.
I am, yeah. I do sort of know what you mean.
Yeah, making it feel like it is a mockumentary, but making it feel like a documentary where you're a fly on the wall. And I like all the fly on the wall moments of this, like, where you've got this filmmaker who keeps trying to peek in on him on the toilet and stuff like that, and he's clearly very uncomfortable with this. And I like that because I like how he's a very likeable protagonist.
He is.
He's confident enough to put himself out there, but he does have sort of lines that he doesn't cross.
It's weird, because he's clearly a stalker. Alarm bells should be there, but he's presented in a really endearing fashion.
I like how everyone else sort of sees him in that way, because, I don't know, it is almost endearing in certain respects, but I like how towards the end he does sort of say, I don't know, this makes me feel like a bit of a stalker. So I like how he says that an hour and a half in.
What, nothing else you've done so far makes you feel like a bit of a stalker?
No, like all the songs that he mailed her and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, he only mailed her one, maybe two.
It's hinted that he's done more, but they're playing it very cautiously, so he probably didn't. But again, that's
Yeah.
not a bad thing. It works. This level of daringness works.
Yeah.
So, how well did the film achieve its goals, Ollie? What do you think they were?
I think it achieved its goals of educating about the history of Condoleezza Rice very well, and also, I think doing it through the lens of a comedy musical about a guy trying to court her was a really ingenious touch.
Yeah, it both takes the edge off, but also makes the edge more jarring when they pump it up to 11 at the end.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, very well, I think, is the answer to that.
Also, being a documentary about a prominent political figure, it also does a very good job of not being preachy or anything like that.
Yeah, that's true. It's very down the middle.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of down the middle where it says, illegal wars, making mistakes about fighting terrorism and torture are very much bad, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I mean, well, it's not down the middle, but it presents itself as being fair.
Yeah, but exactly, there should be a consensus that that is bad.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at this from a middle ground perspective, there's nothing conflicting with that.
Yeah, true. So yeah, I think it achieved its goals very well.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how it interviewed so many people who knew her as well, because it was very informative. They very easily could have just done the Borat memes for the whole thing, but they do a good job of finding out information that a lot of people who probably knew more about her because they're US citizens, for example, might not know themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very good style of movie, very unique. I can see why this might have a bit of a cult following. Which brings me to something. I found a poster of this movie, a large poster of this movie, on Amazon, which you can buy for £25.
Huh.
Is that a worthy investment?
I mean, it's a conversation starter.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my god, what if I, post-COVID, I managed to pull someone, take the next my poster and say, what is that movie on the... So, it's a movie called Condi. It's about Condoleezza Rice. Oh, okay. Can we get back to the coitus, please? Yeah, I like how the movie was trying to do several different things, but it didn't feel disjointed.
Yeah.
Because that's the things it was doing. It was doing unironically good songs that were performed quite well by Devin. Some of them written by him, some of them by various different artists. So it did a musical. It did a documentary about Condoleezza Rice, looking at her upbringing and achievements and flaws. It did an expose on contemporary goings-on in politics internationally. It also, very strangely, did a bit of social commentary about how superficial, well, both the political situation, the way people treat other people is when they have the focus group in to watch the love disc about Devin Rattray, and a lot of people are quite scathing of him, and then when he comes in dressed up nicely with the suit, a lot of them admit that their image of him has improved as a result of that.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like he could do that social commentary if he's just doing a straight up documentary, like a panorama documentary about this person.
No.
So, through being mixed in several different genres, it achieves a lot more than if it was just one genre.
Yeah, it's a really impressive balance that is struck here.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Super Saiyan 3 of documentaries in that regard. By adding on all these extra power-ups, you're doing something you couldn't usually do.
Although it probably wouldn't last for very long.
Exactly. This analogy gets better and I didn't even think about it properly.
Yeah.
So I think
Um,
I think it achieved what it did very well. I would like to see more documentaries like this in the future about various topics. It doesn't even have to be political figures or individuals. It could be about anything, maybe it's something historical.
yeah. So what's the next question?
Next question is, did the movie exceed your expectations?
It did. It very much did. I was expecting a mockumentary that was kind of fun, maybe with a tacked on cheesy happy ending. But
I didn't think they were going to do that. I thought it was going to end about the way that it would with him being disillusioned with her.
yeah,
That's kind of what I was expecting, because it was very formulaic. Like all plots, it follows a three-act structure. This is nothing radical.
yeah,
So it was predictable in the way that it was what I was expecting it to be, but in the delivery of that and actually seeing it for my own eyes, it did exceed my expectations because it worked out better than I was expecting it to.
yeah. It was a lot better than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, because I didn't think this would be that relevant to me, and it kind of isn't, because it's someone who's literally never held political office in the country I live in,
Yeah,
and someone who's not been prominently involved on the international political stage in, 13 years?
yeah,
Despite that, it was still interesting. And if it can hold your interest after all this time, then I think that's quite a good barometer.
I think we both went into it for the bizarre premise.
Yeah, like, if it was a straight-up documentary about Condoleezza Rice, to be honest, we probably wouldn't watch it, because, no offence to her, but there's a million things in the world that are more interesting to me.
Yeah, same.
So, yeah, they grabbed our attention with the premise, and it worked out well for them.
Yeah. I think more educational films should take that kind of route.
Yeah, because learning can be fun.
Yeah.
I mean, Borat's very educational. It does it through a more caustic method, but sorry I keep talking about Borat. I think we should review Borat just to get out of our systems.
Perhaps.
Speaking of which, I really did like the new one. I felt like somehow it felt more relevant than the first one did in its own time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that when we cover it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, is there an element in the film that particularly appealed to you?
I liked the comedy parts. The comedy parts made me laugh.
Yeah, but also at the same time, I didn't lose my interest when the comedy parts weren't happening.
Yeah, it was genuinely interesting, the information it was giving you. So, it was a very interesting documentary as well as a funny.
Absolutely. Because it probably wouldn't have worked if the documentary parts were boring.
Yeah, that's true.
And they meld together well despite being completely clashing styles. Because, for example, if you only watched the comedy bits of this, it wouldn't really make that much sense. Whereas if you watched only the documentary parts of it, it'd probably be a little bit boring to a lot of people. I mean, I'm a university student. We've done a whole section on documentaries, and I would very gladly recommend this to anyone.
Particularly, I like the bit when he's trying to teach him ice skating.
Yeah, that was a nice scene, and I like how he's up for anything, this guy, Devin.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's very endearing. I found him a very endearing character, and I would say that's an element in the film that particularly appealed to me.
Yeah.
Also, another scene that I found very interesting was when they interview the lobbyist. I think he was a real-life lobbyist because they don't present him as anything else, and I feel like a documentary that's trying to be factually accurate wouldn't present this person if he was an actor, if that makes sense.
Yeah, true. Which one was the lobbyist again?
You know, the guy who was a jerk to him who had the focus group. No, I think he was a campaign consultant. I don't think he was a lobbyist, sorry. But I assume he wasn't an actor, so obviously they got somebody who's quite high up in his field to go along with this, because he was definitely in on the joke, because a lot of the scenes where he kept casually insulting him about his weight were obviously scripted.
Yeah.
It just plays too well as a comedy for it to all be spontaneous.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm impressed that they managed to get him to go along with it. So obviously the filmmakers had some clout to get someone in this industry along for the ride, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would probably say the protagonist is an element particularly appealing. Also, he had a good singing voice. I was genuinely surprised. I was actually I wouldn't say dreading, because that's too strong a word, but I expected the singing scenes to be a bit cringe.
No, they weren't.
They weren't even embarrassing. I wouldn't be embarrassed if it was me.
He carried them very well.
Yeah, and obviously the scenes with the music videos and all the like Windows 98 effects are meant to look tacky, and that's all very deliberate, and it works because it's presented with such sincerity.
Yeah.
I mean,
And, well, they're supposed to be funny.
yeah, exactly. It's meant to be funny. It's very much intentional humour. You would believe all of this is happening, actually. It's really well acted.
Yeah. Oh.
It's very believable because, obviously, like Borat, a lot of it is false and scripted. But a lot like Borat, it's believable.
Yes, this is true.
I keep doing this. I should broaden my horizons. I feel like there's a million documentaries I need to watch.
Yeah.
Sorry I'm such a Philistine. This is a difficult question, actually. How does the film hold up today?
Topically, not so much.
No.
Because, obviously, it's very dated.
And obviously, being people who have been alive for the last 15 years or so, we've seen the resolution of a lot of the issues have been raised. You know, it turned out there weren't any weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. It turned out that torture was happening, and they've since stopped that, I suppose? Or at least agreed it was bad when it was happening. Because there was a whole thing about closing down Guantanamo Bay. I don't think they ended up closing it entirely, because that was like one of Obama's big things, but I believe that stuff that goes against the Geneva Convention doesn't happen there anymore, or its role's been downscaled a lot. I don't know, I'm not American, I don't want to get anything wrong.
Politically, it's a bit dated. I think as a piece of comedy, it holds up reasonably well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't really cross any lines of decency, I don't think.
No, not at all. But it is very much of its time.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be doing its job if it wasn't controversial in its own time.
Yeah.
Because you don't make an expositional documentary unless you're willing to ruffle some powerful feathers.
No, you don't make a film about a powerful figure unless you're not afraid of pissing them off, because that's how you end up with the Iron Lady.
Have you seen that?
No, I was just making it a...
No, well, I don't know. I think it was pretty fair.
I've heard Jim Broadbent was funny.
He was good in that.
I've not actually seen it, but I've heard it. I have heard that it went out of its way to not piss off Margaret Thatcher, who was alive at the time.
It's weird because I think it would have, but not for the reasons you might think.
Right. Oh, I'm going to have to watch that now, aren't I?
Yeah, I don't know if that comes in... It doesn't come in our time period, does it? No, I think it's just outside.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of presents her in her time when she was suffering from dementia, and it sort of shows her dead husband as a comedic character that keeps coming in and out, which, regardless of the politics of it all, you would consider to be very disrespectful. So it's disrespectful to its subject matter, but not in the ways you would expect.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's,
But that wasn't a documentary. It was a drama.
Yeah, that was a biopic.
Yeah, it was a biopic, whereas this obviously isn't a biopic because they only use stock footage.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? How well does the film hold up today?
Well, I was half joking about that thing, the Iron Lady, because obviously I haven't seen it, and I wouldn't make that judgment on a film I hadn't seen.
No, I do recommend seeing it, actually.
But that is something I'd heard about it, is that they sort of tiptoe around some of the issues a bit.
I don't think they do. I just think that it's kind of in bad taste in ways you wouldn't expect.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
How does the film hold up today, would you say?
Well, again, politically not so much. As a piece of comedy, yeah, alright. I mean, it's a bit tame next to things like Borat.
But again, it works for this particular subject matter, because if they went around you can't exactly run around the White House in your underwear, can you?
Well, no.
Well, maybe now. I mean, have you seen the last few weeks?
Yeah, apparently some people can.
I realised that was topical satire the moment after I said it.
Yeah.
Things were a lot tamer back then, weren't they? In certain respects.
They were. Good times.
Yeah, the film holds up decently well today. Obviously, it's not as relevant as it was back then. But as a piece of media made for the purposes of entertainment and information...
I'd still recommend it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I liked it, and I've walked away both wiser and entertained. I might just get that poster. You may see it up on the wall when we do our monthly videos, which we will be bringing back at some point.
Yeah, we definitely will.
Yeah, so I guess this is a bit of a change of pace for Film de Siècle, because we usually discuss less serious movies. Not that this wasn't flippant, but, you know.
Yeah. At any rate, what's the next one?
Was the film received appropriately at the time?
Well, first we'd better make sure we know how the film was received.
It received several awards. For example, at the Milan International Film Festival, it won the Leonardo's Horse Award for Best Documentary, which I don't think, which I think was the Leonardo's Horse Award, which I think is named after Da Vinci and not DiCaprio. I don't think DiCaprio had a horse that I know of.
Yeah.
Devin Rattray got a Best Performance Award at the Orlando Film Festival. That's good.
Yeah, seems appropriate.
Deserved. I'd say it was a really good performance. Best Political Satire at Connecticut Film Festival. It seems like a bit of an indie darling. I don't think it hit the big time. So it's a shame that more people haven't seen it then. I know that the University of Denver tried to stop a screening happening there because of the claims that were made by a few of the people who were there with her.
Right.
So obviously it ruffled those feathers. So I suppose it achieved something in that regard.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the only bit of criticism that you could even argue is subjective, because there was that one person who was in that position at the university, and then she alleges that Condoleezza sort of coerced her out of it and then took her place. Whereas, to be fair, the rest of the criticism is just stuff that's in the public record.
Yeah.
So you can sort of see why the university would have been in such uproar about there being a screening there.
I do think it was received appropriately critically at the time. I think it deserved to do better than it did.
Yeah, absolutely. It deserved to be seen by more people, certainly, because I think more people would have got something out of it, to be honest with you.
Which I think makes it even more of a Film de Siècle movie, because, that was one of the things we wanted to do, is talk about films that people might not be familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, we stand up for the small films that a lot of people have just tossed aside.
I mean, obviously we do the big ones as well, but, you know.
Yeah, but the big ones don't really need us to expose them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no.
Not that we have huge clout or anything, I just think it's more interesting to talk about films that a lot of people haven't had their say on.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we're doing the prequels later this year, for example, the Star Wars prequels, but the thing is, 1 million people have made their views known on The Phantom Menace, whereas I think we might be one of maybe 3 people in the entire world who know about Courting Condi.
Yeah.
The other 2 being Devin Rattray and Condoleezza Rice. Sebastian Doggett having long forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Wait, there's 2 of us, I miscounted. I like how the film credits say it stars George W. Bush. I kind of expected there to be a moment like in the newest Borat where he runs into the convention where Mike Pence is and that's why he's credited. I don't know why they credit George W. Bush, because he's only in it as stock footage.
Yeah, does that count?
I don't know, but Condoleezza Rice is also credited lower than George W. Bush, which is interesting.
I mean, I suppose it must count.
Yeah, I wonder if they get royalties through this. That would be ironic.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they do. Although, having said that, I do wonder how much money Tamara Morrison's making from Star Wars, because he plays, millions of characters.
Well, 200,000 with 1 million more well on the...
Yeah? Does he get a paycheck for each one? He must be rolling in it. No, I thought it was done very well. Very interesting documentary. If I was some sort of lecturer, I would show this just as an example of the medium being done well.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm guessing that at least half the people watching this probably haven't seen it before. So just do yourself a favour. It's on Amazon Prime. It's free if you've got that service. Watch it or log in someone else's account or pirate it legally. You know, who are we to say otherwise?
Not that we condone that. You should definitely not do that.
No. I'm not saying you should or that we condone it. I'm just saying that that's something that can be done.
We wouldn't be able to stop you from doing that.
No. I mean, our arms are tied with lockdown and everything. We can't run into people's houses and stop that from happening.
No. Not anymore.
No. We used to. We used to be like the local vigilantes.
Yeah.
Okay, in conclusion, Ollie.
You wouldn't steal a car. Ironically, the music for that anti-piracy ad was pirated.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. I used the piracy to destroy the piracy.
Apparently.
So fun. Perfectly balanced as all things should be. Over to you, Ollie, for your conclusions.
Well, I don't know what else can be said. It was a fun time. I learned a lot. I was surprised at how well the balancing act of the different genres was.
Me too. I expect it to be really jarring. I mean, the only moments you could consider to be jarring are the naked scene on the beach, which there isn't really anything else like that in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And also the very end, where it just unloads loads of information about like the terrible things Condoleezza Rice has been doing. But again, that's to be expected, because if you started off with that, then you're not really being eased in. And, well, what are you going to do with the rest of the movie?
Yeah, the premise doesn't really allow for starting with that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if that was the only intention of the movie, you could very easily do that in a 5-minute YouTube video.
Yeah.
So I like how it sets out to do multiple things and achieves them all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's doing the documentary dream. I mean, some examples I can think of, like Walking with Dinosaurs, merging genres by using CGI to recreate things but presenting it as a wildlife documentary. I feel like when you fuse genres to make a documentary, it's somehow more interesting than just talking over stock footage or interviewing boring old people.
Yeah.
Do comment, like, and subscribe. We want to hear what you think of this movie, because, like we say, it deserves a lot more discussion than it's had in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
And look forward to an eclectic mix of big movies, small movies, some as big as your head.
Yeah.
Well, maybe some of the, if you've got the big laser discs from the 90s, they might be. I don't know.
And we will see you next week.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.